Hey there. We're about to get into a topic that's tough, but so important. We're talking about abuse. In this explainer, we're going to break it all down, what it is, how to spot the signs, and, most critically, what you can actually do about it. This is essential stuff, especially if you're in any kind of caregiving or support role. So let me ask you this right off the bat. What would you do? I mean, really take a second and think about it. If you suspected someone was being abused, what's your next move? For a lot of us, this isn't just a hypothetical question, and your answer, well, it could literally change a life.
And here's the good news. You don't have to just guess or hope you do the right thing. There's actually a clear framework, a roadmap for how to handle this. By the time we're done here, you're going to have the tools to go from feeling uncertain to feeling ready to take action.
Okay, so before we can build that framework, we've got to start with the basics, right? We need to establish the ground rules. What exactly are we talking about when we say abuse, and what protections are already in place? So here in Canada, the foundation for protecting people is absolutely rock solid. You've got the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the Criminal Code. Now, these aren't just some dusty old legal books. They're basically a shield, and that shield protects everyone: citizens, immigrants, visitors, you name it. They make it crystal clear that abuse and neglect are never, ever okay. It's also super important to get that abuse is way more than just physical violence. It really breaks down into 5 main types. You've got emotional abuse. Think constant insults, threats, intimidation. Then there's sexual abuse, which is any sexual act a person doesn't consent to. Financial abuse. That can be anything from stealing money to completely controlling someone's finances. And then there's neglect, failing to provide the basic things someone needs to live, like food or medicine. It's just as damaging. Knowing these types is step 1 to actually seeing them. Now, let's talk about something that helps explain a really tough question. Why do people stay in abusive situations? It often comes down to this really deceptive and powerful pattern called the cycle of abuse.
This cycle is a 3-act play, and it explains so much. First, you have the tension-building stage. The person being abused feels like they're constantly walking on eggshells. Then, predictably, comes the explosion. That's the abusive incident itself. But here's the really insidious part. After the explosion comes the honeymoon phase. The abuser is sorry, they're loving, they swear it'll never happen again. And that glimmer of hope is what creates so much confusion and traps the person right before the tension starts to build all over again.
Okay, so we've got the definitions, we understand the pattern. Now let's get really practical. How does this stuff actually show up in the real world? What are the concrete warning signs we all need to be looking for? Well, abuse isn't a one-size-fits-all problem. It looks different depending on the relationship. In spousal abuse, the core issue is so often about control. With child abuse, it's a terrible violation of a caregiver's most basic duty. And when we look at elder abuse, it often revolves around financial exploitation or neglect, sometimes from the very people who are supposed to be caring for them. Each one is a different, terrible abuse of power and trust.
Now here's the point that is so often missed. In a caregiving setting, abuse can be a two-way street. Of course, clients are vulnerable and can be abused. But healthcare workers themselves are also at risk, from clients, from their families, and even from coworkers. We have to acknowledge this to create an environment that's truly safe for everyone involved.
But no matter the context, there are some universal red flags, things you should always take seriously. Unexplained injuries, bruises, burns, that kind of thing. A sudden shift in someone's personality. Maybe they become really withdrawn or fearful. Obvious signs of neglect, like poor hygiene. Weird financial stuff going on. And maybe the biggest tell of all, when someone is clearly terrified of a specific person. Those are signals you just can't ignore.
Okay, this brings us to the most important part of this whole discussion. We've defined the problem, we know the signs. So, what do you actually do? This is the action plan. This is where the rubber meets the road.
If you're a support worker and a client is being abusive towards you, the protocol is all about safety and de-escalation. First, stay calm. Don't get into an argument. That only makes things worse. Second, set a very clear, firm limit. Something like, I will not be spoken to that way. If you feel unsafe at any point, get yourself out of there. And the final step, which is totally non-negotiable, is to report the incident to your supervisor right away.
But what if it's the other way around, and a client tells you that they're being abused? The approach is different. Your number one job is to support them. Stay calm, listen, and, this is huge, believe them. Let them know they did the right thing by telling you. But you can't promise to keep it a secret. You have to explain gently that you have a duty to report it. Then, you write down their exact words and you report it immediately. And let's be absolutely 100% clear about this. For a support worker, reporting isn't just a good idea, it is a legal obligation. When you're dealing with vulnerable people like children or dependent adults, you are required by law to report suspected abuse. It's not optional. It is a core duty of the job.
So how do you weave all of this into your everyday work? Well, it really comes down to a few core principles. Always treat people with dignity and respect. Keep your eyes open for those warning signs we talked about. Maintain clear professional boundaries. And here's the golden rule. Never, ever, ever ignore or cover up abuse. Your job is to be a protector, not just for your clients, but for your colleagues too.
So there you have it. The definitions, the cycle, the warning signs, and the action plan. You have the framework now. Knowing all this is the first crucial step, but it's only the first step. The real question is, what are you going to do with it? What will your next step be to help keep the people around you safe?